Aside from editing a big-time network TV show, which is also one of my favorites, is kind of how he got the gig. And we do like to talk about jobs here, and we also do like to talk about craft. So here to talk about jobs and talk about craft, please welcome Zack Arnold.
So like Larry said, I'm going to do kind of a mixture of talking about kind of what we do on the show and some of the unique things that we do as editors. But what comes up a lot for me is people ask me how I actually got the job working on Burn Notice. And what I usually tell them is Craigslist and Facebook. And they look at me and they're like, well, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense because Burn Notice is done by Fox TV Studios and it's USA Network. And what I kind of try and tell people is that there is a way to break down those network barriers, and it's not always about who you know and getting into the right circles. Kind of the thesis of my story is that if you work hard enough to do really good work, eventually, after a certain amount of time, somebody's going to notice it and you're going to get in. So I always try to tell people, don't use the "you have to know somebody" excuse or "I don't work in a studio" excuse, because I basically just kind of broke through that barrier. And the way that I did it is, like I said, through Craigslist and Facebook. And I originally started when I came out here after graduating. I went to school at the University of Michigan, and I got my first job as an assistant editor at a trailer house, and it was a relatively small company, so I was able to work my way up relatively quickly. Worked in trailers for a few years, and then I got a job on an independent feature film. But where this story kind of starts is about 3 years ago. I was one of the people up to cut the movie 500 Days of Summer. And at the time, nobody knew who Mark Webb was, and now he's obviously the guy that's directing Spider-Man 4. But I had interviewed with him, and I actually ended up being one of 2 people that was going to get the job on 500 Days of Summer. And the other editor ended up getting the job, and deservedly so. He's a brilliant editor, and he's now a friend of mine. His name is Alan Bell. But after I got that job, it was just like the sense of, oh my God, this could have been the opportunity of my life. I mean, it was my dream job. It was a film I always wanted to work on. So I basically started at the bottom, and I'm like, I'm just going to go on Craigslist, and I'm going to see what's out there, because I just went from being up here and getting really close to just kind of starting from scratch. And I found these 2 guys, these 2 independent guys that had this idea for a really, really cool web series. And nobody had ever heard of them. They were completely independent. They basically took their credit cards, maxed them out, and shot 10 minutes worth of pilot footage. And I met with them and I said, you know what, I'm willing to take a look at it, see if I can help. And they showed me their footage, and I looked at it, and I just got this feeling, and I said, I don't know who these guys are, but this footage is going to take me somewhere, because these guys are the real deal, and I think that this is something that's worth putting time into. And I figured, if anything, this is going to be like the calling card project that necessarily isn't going to make me a whole lot of money, but if I put it on a reel, I think it's going to get me somewhere. And I ended up cutting the first 2 pilot episodes for the series, which in the web is like 2 5-minute episodes, and I did the sales trailer. And they shopped it around, and they ended up having it picked up by Sony Pictures Entertainment, which distributed through a website called Crackle.com. So I was brought on to edit the project. It's called the Bannen Way. It came out last year, I believe. And I edited the trailer for the project as well. So I'd gotten this job through Craigslist. And when I was finished with I cut the feature film, also cut it into webisodes, cut the trailer. And when I had the trailer, I said, this is something that I need to get in front of people, because I didn't have a whole lot of studio connections, I didn't have an in, but I had Facebook. So basically, I started to Facebook stalk anybody in the industry that I thought would take a look at this. And I don't condone Facebook stalking in any way, shape, or form, but that's what I did. So what I did was I thought about the Bannen Way, and I said, what is this similar to? What I'll do is I will show you the trailer that basically, I mean, social media to me is still astounding. It just amazes me what you can do with it. Where all I had to do was send a message, put in a link for where I had the trailer posted online, and they can open their message and they can watch the trailer right there without going to another link. So first thing I'll do is I'll show you the trailer, and then when you see that, you'll probably get an idea of why it was that I went after Burn Notice, because stylistically they're very similar. So